Joining us now has some pretty strong words that I read. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich on this raid of the president's personal attorney's home, hotel room, and his offices. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well, and I meant every single strong word that I said, particularly when you go all the way back to Paul Manafort and his wife in their pajamas at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up to have the door broken in by folks who turn out to be the U.S. government. I mean, this is the behavior of a police state, not the behavior of a free country.
Well, let's start with where this now has gone. I think you're still in Europe, but and you probably haven't seen Maggie Haberman and company's big report in the New York Times that the raid on Trump's lawyers sought records on the Access Hollywood tape. This on top of now Stormy Daniels is now apparently a witness for the special counsel and the prosecution and cooperating, along with Karen McDougal. I thought this was about Trump-Russia collusion, and I don't see... Yeah.
Let me be blunt here for a second. This is about Rob Rosenstein totally, completely failing to do his job. Failing. There's no grounds for an independent counsel looking into Russia to turn around and decide, oh, he has the right to look into everything. There's an old Stalin quote of the KGB agent who said, "You show me the man, I'll find you the crime." Well, that's the opposite of the rule of law. And what we're watching right now is a group of left-wing lawyers in a department which gave 98% of its campaign donations to Hillary Clinton, who have gone after President Trump and everybody near him in a way which just contrasted with how much they protected Hillary Clinton and everyone near her. And any reasonable American understands that the very concept of the rule of law is under threat now, and it's under threat from the Justice Department, which is out of control and which has refused to turn over documents for 4 months to the Congress, has yet to release a report that was due in February about the number 2 guy in Justice who was fired, McNabb, has failed to release the document that was due in March about Comey, who's about to go off on a self-aggrandizing, self-serving book tour.
By the way, you know, Comey today called...
We're supposed to be reasonable.
And Comey's calling Trump a mob boss. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that, and I think it just did... I mean, let's be really clear here. Comey is a self-serving person who we now know, and this was a real surprise to me when I read it yesterday, we now know in 2007, collaborated with Chuck Schumer to deliberately embarrass George W. Bush, who had appointed Comey. And the National Review had an article which step by step took apart any plausible excuse for believing that Comey is a serious citizen trying to do his job, and really outlining the case for which he is somebody who has consistently manipulated his way and focused on his own self-aggrandizement. And I think this kind of stuff, by the way, I will say to everybody that Craig Shirley has written a stunning article on the case of the Justice Department, deep state versus conservatives, going back to Reagan and then to Bush 1 and then to Bush 2. And you go through step by step by step, and you begin to realize that there's this continual pattern of the left-wing civil servants doing everything they can to undermine and cripple conservatives.
Do you have any doubt now that this is an effort to overthrow a duly elected president?
No, I think what you're seeing is an effort to have a judicial coup d'etat by a group of people who are so deeply, bitterly opposed to the president that they will do anything to get him, and by an elite news media, which is equally deeply opposed to the president. I talked to several reporters today, and every time I would say to them, show me one time when someone close to Hillary Clinton had their home broken in at 3 in the morning. Show me one time when we've had the kind of intense persecution that we're getting here, and you can't find it.
It doesn't exist.
The Clinton people were protected over and over.
Here's what we do know, is that we know that Hillary violated 18 U.S.C. 793. She mishandled classified top secret special access programming information when she put it on that mom and pop shop server in a bathroom closet. We know that if Newt Gingrich ever deleted 33,000 subpoenaed email and acid washed his hard drive with bleach bit and beat up his devices where these emails may have gone to, meaning BlackBerries and iPhones, that you would be arrested for obstructing justice. But it was but then you've got the same players here. You've got Comey. Now look at Comey. He's the guy that told Donald Trump that the dossier was unverified and salacious in January of 2017, but in October 2016, they had no problem using that salacious, unverified dossier as the bulk of information to get a FISA warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate. And now we see that they were able to get inside the Trump campaign backdoor. Now they're getting into Trump's business's backdoor by doing this raid, as Alan Dershowitz said, a violation of Michael Cohen's constitutional rights. And now they'll have access to everything Trump at this point.
Well, and let me point out to you for a second that I thought Dershowitz last night on your show was just brilliant. And I thought you were doing the country a real service by letting a man of that stature, that background as a Harvard law professor, lay out. And the guy's liberal. This is not somebody you think of normally as pro-Trump, but he does believe in the Constitution. He does believe in the rule of law. And let me just point out, there's a general principle, at least in all the books I ever read, that if the process of getting the evidence is tainted, the evidence is inadmissible. Well, there were no grounds for Mueller to be getting any kind of evidence on the topics for which they're going after Cohen. So when he turns over this information, what's the legitimate ground for this? Why is he allowed to do this?
Yeah, we're told they'll have a taint team.
It's a violation of a core principle.
You know, I've been trying to warn people. Everybody, if you remember, when Comey was appointed, nearly a year ago now, everybody, oh, he's such a good guy. And then I look at the team that he put together, all Clinton, Hillary, Obama donors, and his pit bull, what the New York Times describes Robert Mueller's pit bull, a guy by the name of Andrew Weissman. And I've been talking about, this is the guy that cost tens of thousands of Americans their job because he was overzealous in the Enron case, Anderson accounting case. Tens of thousands of people lost their job. He lost in the Supreme Court, was overturned 9-0. He put 4 Merrill executives in jail for a year. That was overturned by the Fifth Circuit. He's been excoriated by judges for withholding exculpatory evidence. And Robert Mueller, when he was working in Boston, and his team was working with a confidential FBI informant close to Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was committing murders. 4 innocent people went to jail in that case. 2 of them died in jail. They were found innocent and over $100 million paid later. And again, we're dealing with exculpatory evidence withheld. So I kept saying to anybody that will listen, I don't trust Mueller. He's not the man beyond reproach that everybody said. Look at the team he hired. Why would you ever hire Andrew Weissman to be a janitor at this point with anything to do with the law?
Well, I have to confess that as often happens, you were ahead of me. When Mueller was first appointed, I tweeted that I thought, given his reputation, people should, relax and give him the benefit of the doubt. And then, like you, as I watched who he was hiring, I just thought, this is crazy. This verges on insane. I don't think he has a single pro-Trump lawyer on his entire team.
He doesn't.
Now, if Comey had put together an investigatory group on Hillary Clinton that had only hardline conservative Republicans, the left would have gone crazy. The New York Times would have gone crazy. CBS News would have gone crazy. But we're watching what, as I think, the president's right to say it's a witch hunt. This president who is in the middle of achieving extraordinary things, lowest unemployment rate maybe in over a generation, the Chinese beginning to back down on trade violations, the North Koreans offering to negotiate on nuclear weapons, a huge amount of deregulation, conservative judges, tax cuts that are fueling economic growth, the lowest black unemployment rate, I think, maybe in American history.
Yeah, you and I are the only 2 people in America that ever talk about it besides the president. What do you think of Mark?
That's right.
Nobody cares, obviously, in the media. They don't say one good thing about the president. They're all locked into this obsessive, compulsive hatred that they have for the president. What about Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan? They're now saying that Sessions and Rosenstein will be held in contempt if they don't hand over documents, and Wray should be impeached. What do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, they absolutely are right to hold them in contempt. And I noticed that we also had Chairman Nunes say, I think yesterday, that he was moving towards thinking they should be impeached. And look, I think people need to ask a simple question. What is it that the Justice Department has learned that is so terrible that it has to be covered up? And why is it that for 4 months, and it ain't because the bureaucracy is slow and stupid, it's because they know there is so much bad stuff in these documents that they are desperate to avoid releasing them. And I think this is a huge deal. As you know, I've done a course on defending America, and in that course, I have an entire section on the rule of law, and I cannot overstate for our audience. If we lose the ability to have a genuine rule of law, and we degenerate like Venezuela into a country where we have the rule of personalities, we have lost everything that we once thought America was.
Totally agree with that statement. Now, I guess the question is, well, the president can't trust Robert Mueller. He can't sit down and talk with this guy. They've been duplicitous in their negotiations. So the only option I see for the president is to hire the best lawyers and fight like hell and use the bully pulpit that he has to combat this. If he fires Mueller, then God only knows what's going to happen in the country.
Yeah, I think that would split the Republican Party and lead to chaos. I'm opposed to firing Mueller, but I think there are things the president could do that are much more clever than what he's been doing. First of all, his lawyers ought to send a simple letter to Mueller that says, we're very willing to consider having an interview. Tell us what crimes you're investigating. What is this interview about?
Well, apparently, up until I heard just before the raid of Michael Cohen that's what they were all doing, that the president was cooperating. They've never invoked executive privilege at any point. They've handed over millions of documents, I understand it, and apparently there's no goodwill here on the other side. This is now a witch hunt.
Well, of course there's not. The other side is a lynch mob designed to destroy the president. But I think there's a very powerful question to ask Mueller. What's the crime you're investigating? What is it you want to talk to the president about? Tell us in advance.
Yeah.
What is it you think is a crime here? Because Mueller had a very specific instruction. You are supposed to look into Russia and into whether or not there's Russian collusion. And then, idiotically, Rosenstein, or maybe deliberately, willfully, and cleverly, Rosenstein added a little clause that says, in any other matter that you come across.
Yep. All right, stay right
crazy.
there.
That means you now have a prosecutor who can look at everything in your entire life to find out whether there isn't something that they can get you on.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the end of a free society.
We'll continue more with Newt Gingrich. We'll ask him what the president should do next, and what about Paul Ryan leaving as speaker. We'll get to that, and what Republicans need to do if they want to win in 2018. All right, as we roll along, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. I'll put this all in one last question. Now going forward, knowing what we know, what should the president do? Ryan is now out as speaker at the end of the year. What should the Republican Party be doing, in your view?
Well, those are two very different questions. Let me just say, first of all, that everybody on the Republican side, starting with the president, should systematically really work on this whole issue of Justice Department corruption, Justice Department cover-up, Justice Department being out of control and breaking the law. Because if we win that argument by September, if it's clear that the problem wasn't Donald J. Trump, the problem was a sick institution which gave 98% of its money to Hillary Clinton, which was consistently protecting Clinton and consistently doing things that were inappropriate to the President of the United States, I think if we win that argument, we are dramatically stronger in September and October. And then second, I think that Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise and the others who are going to pick up the banner with Paul Ryan's retirement, they need to work with the president and with the Senate Republicans, and we need to have a 60 to 90-day campaign starting in probably mid-August that draws a vivid, sharp contrast between who we are and who the left is. Just take the economic growth. We should be in every African-American community every day pointing out this is the lowest black unemployment in history. Isn't that a good thing? Wouldn't you like to have a party that actually brought you jobs instead of a party that brought you food stamps? And we got to have the guts to go to every American, win the campaign. You will remember when I first ran, the year I finally won, I was behind 51-37 in September. when George H.W. Bush ran as vice president, he was behind by 19 points in May and won by 8 points in October or in November, which means 1 in every 4 Americans switched their position. Campaigns matter, and we can't wage a 6 or 8 month campaign because the elite media hates us so much, and they're going to distort and attack everything we're doing so strongly. So we just need to tee up about a 60 to 90 day campaign, and you'll remember because you were there, we did not launch the contract with America till mid-September because we knew if we'd launched it too early that the New York Times and others would destroy it. So I think
good advice.
Campaign, I think we can win the campaign.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I know it's late for you there. Thank you for being with us.